All right, welcome to another edition of the Sports Guys. Really glad you're here this week. We are really excited because why is that? There's real football, even though it's preseason football. There's actually football on my TV right now. The Carolina Panthers playing the New England Patriots. And I can't say I'm more excited than this time of year, Robbie. We've been tortured for 7 months with no football, and now we finally get a little bit. How you doing, Robbie?
Doing great. Loving life. Had a great summer. Don't want it to end. Still some summer left, but football has arrived, so life can return to normal. The Olympics saved us a little bit this summer, but it's been a little bit of a barren wasteland. The TV never goes on except for Olympics. Occasionally I'll check in on baseball for sure, but nice to have football on its way.
I will agree with you there. The Olympics have been a lot of fun to watch, especially maybe the first week and a half. I think now the last couple of days is starting to drag on for a lot of people. But U.S. has done great. We're actually going to have our Olympic wrap-up show next week, so look for that episode. We're going to talk about how the U.S. did, how everybody did in general. We're going to talk everything about the Olympics, the opening ceremonies, all the controversy there, and then some of the other controversies during the games, including why they let swimmers go into the Seine in the first place. So we'll have a lot of good stuff next week. But this week we're going to talk
Sleeping on
about
cardboard beds.
yeah, that kind of stuff. People leaving the village and going to hotels. So anyway, this week we're going to talk about NFL football, and we're especially going to talk about these training camps that are underway with a lot of rookies, a lot of people trying to make the teams. There's a lot of themes coming out of this year going into the season, and that's what we're going to talk about today is all the major stories coming out of these training camps. I'm going to get your take on it, Robbie, and I'll give my take. But first, just what are the kind of the biggest things you're excited about for this season, 2024?
I think it's very interesting because I think it's pretty obvious. The best teams are the ones who handle their salary cap the best. I really think that's true. They're able to get people to stay on rookie contracts for as long as possible. They draft well. They're able to go get expensive veterans that really make a difference instead of always in the training room or in the ice bath or something. They're always hurt. The good teams are the ones who manage the cap and do it well and do it very effectively, and they have the right stars in the right positions. What's interesting to me is I really felt like this was one of the best drafts I've ever seen. But what's hilarious is at this point in the whole process, there's only a few of that huge, bigger than normal group of stars coming out, future stars, that most of them aren't very good yet. And it's just funny to watch the development starting out in the, a couple players here and there are good, but this person's coming along slowly or this person's been disappointing. So it's interesting to be at the very beginning of the development cycle for all these future stars. There will be some of them that are busts, and some of them will be disappointments and never really make it. And maybe some of them will always stay wide receiver 4 on teams. But for the huge group of players that we were talking about just a couple months ago in our draft, I think out of that was a large group of talented players that got drafted. And I think a lot of them will make it. But there's going to be a lot of disappointments. And it's kind of funny. It's interesting now to see the rubber hitting the road on some of them. And instead of just showing incredible highlight reel after incredible highlight reel about somebody and saying why they were drafted, now we get to see what they're like when they're getting covered on an island by an all-pro or something. It's a little different. So,
well, you say that, and it's true. You had 300 guys drafted, and you have a lot of undrafted free agents coming to the league. So you got like maybe 500 or 600 new players coming in, and out of those, 5 maybe will make a splash, 5 to 10. A couple quarterbacks, 10. Couple receivers, maybe a linebacker here and there, maybe a defensive end. But for the most part, the guys who come into the league, you want them to be secondary starters, really good, solid backups.
Special teams, backups.
Special teams, and be able to come in for a guy who's injured and be able to fill in capably. That's
you ideally don't really want to have to start them right away, honestly, especially in the positions that really take a lot of thinking. As a quarterback, you have to know what everyone on the field is doing. You have to know where your linemen are blocking, where how blitz pickup's going, where your all your skill position players are running to and blocking for, and it's a lot. So the last thing you want to do is start a rookie quarterback, in my opinion. But what's interesting is at this early stage in the camp process, a few little stars are starting to shine brightly. So, but for the most part, a lot of people look like deer in the headlights. They've never really seen anything like this, and they've heard about it their whole life. It's been their lifelong dream. But when you're there and you're going up against, an all-pro or something, it's different. It's just
It's
different.
interesting you say what you said about the salary cap. I agree with that, but I would add on top of it several other things. The best GMs, the top 5 GMs, maintain the best rosters every year, like the 49ers. I mean, for 5 straight years, they've had the best roster. And so what they do is they draft well. They get really good free agents at bargain prices. They keep their own players at bargain prices, at hometown discounts. And they a lot of times will promise them the chance to get a ring. So that's how they maintain it together.
That's my whole point. When you start to build it and it starts to snowball, then you have a situation where you can tell veterans, if you want to come here, let's have a discount. The Patriots have lost that ability. They can't ask for people to take a hometown discount anymore, or a Super Bowl discount, because they're not going to win the Super Bowl. So they're struggling because they've never drafted very well. So they're kind of one of the lesser teams in the NFL, and are going to be for a while, until
But
they.
if you're not at the 49ers level, that's fine. But if you're a team that's ascending, the way you do it is like the Texans. Okay, they've been stocking up for 5 years.
No question. But the Texans have done exactly what I'm talking about, which is handle your cap properly. You go build your team, and then we've talked about this on other podcasts. You build your team, and then you get your quarterback next to last, near last, because their window opens, and you have a 5-year window at most. Usually it's 4 before you have to pay them. And so this is why the Niners are in their last year of their window, and then they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy like crazy. He's wildly underpaid now. He's going to be wildly overpaid 1 year from now. And it's going to hurt the team. So that's what I'm talking about, is the GMs that handle the cap the best are the ones who can get it rolling in the right direction. And they're the ones who can go out and get the veteran to come join and make that difference. And in some cases, the next step is to get the veteran who's willing to come in at a discount.
But there are some guys who handle cap well, but they don't do talent acquisition well, meaning draft and free agents. And so it's really the GM who can do it all. It's those guys.
Well, what I mean in handling the cap well is getting people of value. So drafting well, getting as many people under rookie contracts as possible, sprinkling in veterans so you have veteran leadership in the locker room. And then when you build all that and you have your quarterback in place, you go get a veteran or two who really make a difference, who come in at a discount because they want a ring. That's what
you remember what Belichick did for years. He would cut guys seemingly in their prime because they wanted their payday, like Will Fork, guys like that. And he cut them in like year 7 when they're about to get their big payday. He cut them and they'd go to the Titans. Titans would give them the money. And then he would plug them in with a 1 or 2 year guy who is hungry, and then Will Fork's on his way down,
We're saying the same thing. If you handle your cap well, you are in a position where your team looks like this. It's got a young quarterback who's growing, strong offensive line, star at each level, and a couple of veteran leaders who are vocal, and you're cooking with grease. You got a Jalen Carter on the defense, and somebody who's a disruptor, great corner who can really cause problems, a hard-hitting safety. Your team's built like that. Your quarterback's in his 2nd year, you make your run at the Super Bowl.
So here's my question to you. What type of percentage of veterans versus young players do you want on your roster? Like, I look at the Green Bay Packers. They're the youngest team in the NFL. And they made the playoffs last year, and they've got a quarterback who's on the rise. And I look at that team, and they're all like 5 years and less NFL experience. But they're playing great.
I want it as young as possible, and then I'll have plenty of money to go get some impact players like a Tyreek Hill or a Jefferson or something. Somebody who can make a huge difference quickly, and they're going to cost you some money. The whole point of saving money is not so you can save money. It's so you have power in free agency where you can make a splash. The dumbest thing you can do is go out and spend a bunch of money on a free agent veteran who's in the training room all the time. That's not making a difference.
Like if you're a receiver away, maybe you're in the market for, Devontae Adams or one of these guys.
Exactly. But you have to put yourself into that position. How do you do that? You manage your cap well. You draft really well, so you have as many people as possible under rookie contracts. You get a couple stars in certain positions, and you want them to be somewhat veteran. They could be in their third, fourth, fifth year. They don't have to be,
Right.
grizzled veterans, but you want some vocal leaders who really carry themselves well and personify the personality of the coach.
Mhm.
And all that. But generally speaking, you want as many people on rookie contracts as possible
What are
without
some other
agreeing that they can't function.
and we agree on that. What are some other big themes you're looking for this season?
I want to see which ones of all these young guys coming up are going to develop. I want to see injuries. Can the teams that are projected to be really good maintain what's been going on? Can they, there's always some surprises. I think the Packers and the Texans were pretty big surprises last year. Anybody who was paying attention knew they were ascending. Just nobody knew that they were a very difficult playoff out for veteran teams. So,
And everyone said that the Lions were so surprising last year, but I didn't think so. They were good the year before, and they felt like they were on the rise. And
I
Goff was
think
playing
that
better.
I think that comes from people not believing in Goff. So they think, they're tough, but come playoff time, they're not that great. I think that's wrong. I think they are very good. They have one of the top 2 or 3 rosters in the NFL. I like Dan Campbell, and I think Goff is underrated. So
At the end of the year, nobody wanted to play the Lions.
yeah, they're incredibly tough and physical. They took on the personality of their coach, and if it weren't for a couple of bad decisions, I think generally speaking, the coach was great. I think he made a couple of bad calls that cost them, and they just came up a little short, but not much. I mean, they were close.
I want to see if there's teams that can challenge the Chiefs in their dynasty. I want to see if the 49ers are going to make it back again 5 years in a row to the NFC Championship game, or is somebody going to supplant them in the NFC? I want to see all those things. And then I want to see all of these quarterbacks that feel like they're kind of like on their last trial to be a starter. We're talking Tua, we're talking Dak, who wants $60 million a year. We're talking Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. You're talking all these guys that want the big money but don't feel like they're really earning the big money. And so it'll be really interesting.
Most of them are not. Most of them are just wildly overpaid and not worth the money. But that's a whole separate discussion.
And then you have these great talented quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and these guys' windows will close eventually. And the question is, are you wasting these guys' talents by not getting to the promised land? So.
I mean, I think the Ravens last year stopped running the ball for no reason and got away from what got them there. And I think they've committed to not doing that this year by getting Derrick Henry. So,
or is it just because they're in the Chiefs?
Are going to be dangerous.
Is because they're in the Chiefs conference? I mean, for 20 years,
No.
the Patriots essentially locked up the AFC, right? And
I think the Patriots got very lucky. I mean, the Chiefs got very lucky last year to get by the Ravens. I think they were very lucky. In fact, it was self-inflicted wounds by the Ravens. The Chiefs squeaked it through. I don't know, but I'll be shocked if they do it again. I just think they've had a good fortune and they have plenty of talent and great coaching that allows you to do it. But I think you also need luck, and I don't think you get good luck 3 years in a row.
You've got ascending teams. You've got teams that haven't met their promise but are good.
And how long can Mahomes go without ever getting injured? Like, it's just not. Right. That's not football. Like football is unfortunately injuries. I'm not wishing it on him. He's one of the most likable guys in the NFL, but it's just not keep happening. There will be a day that he goes down and he's a little injured.
True. I don't know. I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I'm never doing that again.
But if he's in the hot tub.
Yeah, if he's in the hot tub and he's hurt, yeah. But if he's in position in the playoffs again, then I'm betting on Patrick Mahomes. until somebody beats them.
Mhm.
What about guys who are coming back off injury, like Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow? Some of these guys who are great players and were top 5 quarterbacks when they got hurt. But can these guys make a comeback and to get back to the level of being one of those top quarterbacks and taking their guys to at least the playoffs?
I'm a huge Burrow fan, so I mean not huge, but I believe in his talents. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks. And so I think they're wasting his talent there by not getting him the offensive line he needs. I've been saying that since they got him. And every year it's been proven true. He's only getting hurt because the line can't hold up. Meanwhile, they're drafting stars and Jamar Chase and all these guys, and linemen are coming through and they're bypassing them. So, I don't know if they'll ever do it, but he's got the talent to take them far. And if they can ever put it all together, I think they've tried to address the offensive line this year. They said it's got to be a priority because without an offensive line, you don't have Joe Burrow, not the real Joe Burrow. So I've been saying that the whole time. Maybe one of these days they wake up and do it. I don't know if they got the adjustments made this year. Probably better, but I don't know. So there's
What about our teams? What are you looking for the Dolphins coming out of training camp heading into the season? What do you think they can do to kind of get to where they want to be?
Well, they had a huge shuffling of the deck on defense, massive. So it's a big question mark. I don't think for whatever reason they fit well with Vic Fangio's system,
And he left.
and I can't tell you why. So he left, and so did most of the team. They have a 60% turnover rate this year. 60% of the team is different, which I think is the most in the NFL. So that's not good for continuity. But if you want different results, you have to make some changes. So Vic Fangio is gone. I know that they're really excited about Jonnu Smith, and they've even come out and said that one of the biggest things they want to change is they want to be able to use the tight end position more effectively and have it make more impact. So I think they will be able to do that because they're committed to it.
And by the way, that's going to open up the receivers more too.
Yep. That's absolutely right. And that's really what needs to happen. They need to get the running game going. They need to throw the tight end, and Tyreek Hill has to be worked in around those things, not the other way around. Not every ball going to Tyreek Hill and then occasionally they throw somewhere else, because it's a lot easier to stop a slower tight end than it is to have one-on-one on Tyreek Hill by accident. And plus, they were forcing the ball into him last year. So anyway, I feel good about the Dolphins. I think they made a lot of hard choices and a lot of difficult changes. And I think it remains to be seen if they made good changes on defense. A lot of people were coming up for paydays that didn't really deserve it as much, or I was a little queasy about really paying Wilkins huge money. I thought he had a great season last year, but there was something missing sometimes on the effort. I know Dolphin fans will go crazy and say that's not true, but I felt like he was missing it at times. So I hated to see Van Kinkel. I think he was a heartbeat guy, but they just rebuilt their defense, and we'll see if it's better. And offensively, I think they have the 2 best running back tandem in the NFL, and
the best receivers in the NFL,
and the fastest receivers and the best receivers, and they're retooling it and looking at it, and they want to get more out of the tight end so it's a more balanced attack and less reliant on Tyreek Hill, and that makes him more effective because he'll be more of a surprise sometimes instead of them knowing they're throwing to him 3 straight times.
I think you nailed it. Their offense is going to be great. It's going to be great again, and it's really their defense they're going to go as far as their defense lets them.
Yeah, really and even though there was more stars on last year's defense, I feel like getting a different mix of guys. They got some good linebackers, some leadership veterans for linebacker. Javon Holland. I mean, I think they have pieces that could make that defense good.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I have no idea.
In
That's what
terms of my Panthers, anytime you win only a couple games and you're bottom of the barrel, and you've spent 6 years in mediocrity with new ownership, Tepper's made a lot of mistakes. He's hired a lot of the wrong people, and those wrong people have chosen the wrong people and brought the wrong people in. But I do believe he now has the right coach in Canales. He's young. He's offensive minded. He's energetic. He's brought in a really good staff. And I'm excited. Do I think they're going to be barn burners this year? No, they don't have the talent to do that. But, if you get 6 or 7 wins in Canales' first season, that's a pretty good success. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
I think this is the best coaching situation that Tepper has put together.
Me too.
They're going to be below the radar, not being flashy, and just try and pound it down your throat and play good, hard defense. I think they're going to do that until they have built something that would attract
When you see
more draft and a couple of veterans, and then
when you see what Canales did in one season with Baker Mayfield, he essentially saved his career. And now Baker's making $35 million a year now. Before that, couldn't even get a job.
Yeah.
And so he saved his career. And then Canales also, before that, saved Geno Smith's career. He was essentially a career backup who had bounced around to 4 different teams and turned him into a bona fide NFL starter. So 2 years, 2 teams in a row, Canales has proven that he's kind of the quarterback whisperer. And so
the expectations are not high for him. So he can just grow into the position.
But he's inheriting a broken quarterback because they really shouldn't have played Bryce Young last year. They should have played Andy Dalton. And so
I don't know if he's broken. I think
he's not totally broken, but he was shaken. He was shaken.
He's due for a reboot. This is a reboot.
Yeah.
They're going to pound the ball. They're going to run the ball, and they're gonna use tight ends, and they're going to do all kinds of stuff to take pressure off Bryce Young.
Yep, we had a really good running. We had a really good running game last year, and we've added Brooks to the mix, who's the rookie from Texas, really good back. They got added a tight end in the draft as well. Got some decent receivers. We got Adam Thielen still. So I don't know. I'm optimistic that they've beefed up the offensive line, and it's you got to give Canales 3 years to build this thing. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of the big stories coming out of this training camp in the NFL.
Let's do it. And by the way, it's going to be funny to watch this. Did this podcast age well? Who knows? Some of the stuff we're talking about is going to be totally not true in a year from now.
It will be really fun. You're right to watch if this ages well.
I love it.
So Robbie, this is our episode 26, man. Can you believe it?
I can.
NFL training camps, top storylines. That's what we're covering this week. Let's get into it. I'm going to get your take first, and then I'll give my take. So the first one is, will the Chiefs three-peat? Chiefs' unprecedented three-peat attempt includes being the first team to play on 6 days of the week since 1927. So they're going to play games this season. I can't believe this when I saw this. On Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. A docket that's completely unprecedented in the Super Bowl era. And I know that Andy Reid cannot be happy with us. It used to be they would complain if it wasn't on Sunday, if it was Thursday or Monday. And now you're talking Wednesday and Friday and Saturday. Pretty crazy. But they're the first team to try to three-peat since Tom Brady's Patriots. And, of course, Tom Brady's Patriots won back-to-back Super Bowls twice. So they were trying to three-peat twice, and they failed both times. What are your thoughts on the Chiefs and their ability to get this done again?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to.
Okay. Reasons?
I think Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, and he's smart. He's not the highest paid, so his team can always have talent. Last year, the defense was superior. They've let some of those guys walk. They've added speed on offense. So it's almost like they flip-flopped from offense being dominant, winning the Super Bowl, to defense being dominant, winning the Super Bowl. They're back to offense being dominant. But I just think that the chance of putting that together is so small that it's like, something versus the field. You take the field. I think three-peating is really tough. I think everyone gives you the best shot. They've been incredibly lucky with injuries. And I don't know how long that continues. Like
And
no
if I
team.
had asked you this question 1 year ago, you would have said the same thing if I asked you if they could two-peat, right?
I would have said no. And I think they got really lucky to get that done. I think they shouldn't have gotten by the Ravens by talent wise. And I think the Niners, both the Ravens and Niners, had bad game plans against them, and that really helped them thrive. But I'm not a hater. I'm impressed like crazy with the Mahomes and Reed combination. It's almost like the new Belichick Brady. It really is.
Mhm.
But they're not getting a lot of veterans that go there on discounts, and they're not doing a lot of the fancy stuff that the Patriots did to maintain a dynasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think their offense is going to be better, and their defense is going to be worse than last year. And I think
You know,
somebody's going to catch them in the playoffs.
you
That's
know
what I
the
think.
the people who are haters of Tom Brady and of Patrick Mahomes, I just don't understand that. Like
I
that's
don't either.
just to me, that's un-American.
I've always had a
Why
lot
do
of
you hate people
respect.
that are successful? I don't get it.
I've always had a lot of respect for Brady, and I feel like I've transferred that same thing to Mahomes. I don't have any feelings about either of them personally. Um, they don't register on my like love or hate scale. I'm
Mhm.
amazed at the winning and the leadership. It's so amazing to
Mhm.
watch. I love
Mhm.
watching that,
Mhm.
longing for that on my teams, and respecting it. I got no hate towards winners. I got no hate at all. I don't like when people are like cocky or um,
Can you
there's
at
some
least
things that I don't like, but it's not winning. Winning is something I like. I tip my hat to. I don't jump on bandwagons, but I think being a winner is not a reason to hate somebody.
can you at least agree that the Brady, Kelsey, Andy Reid triumvirate is probably the only one in the NFL that could get a three-peat done?
Yes,
I
I
don't think
think if
there's
it,
anybody else in the NFL that could even come close to it. If
I think if
anybody
it can
could
be
do it,
done, these guys can find a way
I
somehow.
feel like with the defense that they've built and bringing Chris Jones back,
Yeah.
uh, their receivers are still unproven, but they were unproven last year too.
No, they're much better
Uh,
this year than they were last year.
they
They
have a
got
better running
the
game this year. I don't know. I'm just telling you, if they make it into the playoffs, which is not a guarantee, but if they do, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes ever again. I'm not doing it.
This team is me a lot like 2 years ago.
This is why I chose Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, which was our first episode of this podcast. And I chose him because I'm not going to bet against him, even if he doesn't have the better team.
For me, they have an opportunity because it's Mahomes. I think if it was Mahomes and Reed, if it wasn't those guys, they would have
Mhm.
no chance. If Brady and Belichick couldn't do it with the
Twice.
team they put together,
Twice. Yeah.
um, I think it's almost too hard of a lift.
Yeah.
But these
I agree.
guys might be able to, but I don't think so. I don't.
Do,
My
do I
general.
think it,
I don't
do I
think so.
think it's harder to three-peat than to repeat? Yes, I do. I do think it's harder.
Me too.
And so I think it's incredibly unlikely. If you had me bet on them or the field, I would choose the field.
Think about
But
it. Every time you win, or even go to the Super Bowl, even the same result happens. You have to pay people. So you pay them, or you got to say goodbye to them. So you have to
right. But
keep rebuilding.
you're going to be shocked if they do it. I'm not really going to be that shocked. They just have that one of those dynasties. I don't know. We'll
I'm
see.
going to be pretty stunned
We'll
because
see.
I think there's a lot of teams that got better in the offseason.
Hmm.
And I think the Ravens learned their lesson.
Hmm.
I think there's still a lot of good teams in the AFC with a lot of good quarterbacks.
Hmm. Yep.
And I think there's going to be teams that can go toe to toe with their offense. And I think the Chiefs defense is going to take a step back this year.
It's always
They
exciting when you have one of these dynasties because I think it makes games better. The ratings go up. All the other teams are shooting for them. They got a huge target on their back, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be watching the Chiefs whenever they play.
Yeah. I think it's
Let's
just
talk about this second question here, which is who will succeed in year one from this QB class? So you had Williams go number one. You had Commanders Jaden Daniels number two. You had Patriots Drake May number three. Falcons took Michael Penix at 8. Vikings took J.J. McCarthy at 10, and then Bo Nix went at 12. So you have 6 guys go in the first round. And the question is, how many of these guys are going to be put on ice in the first year, and how many of these guys are going to start? And then in the end, who's going to be the best of this group?
I think Williams is going to start. I think Jaden Daniels is going to start for the Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Drake May is going to start. I think he's going to fall to third on the depth chart. Um, I think Penix is going to play a couple of games because of injuries, but not be a starter. JJ
Mhm.
McCarthy is not taking any reps with first team, and Bo Nix is doing great. So I still maintain that out of this group, Bo Nix is going to start out the best. He's throwing long bombs for
The
the
problem with
Broncos.
Bo Nix is that he's right now number 3 on the depth chart.
I think he's gonna be a starter.
We'll see. We'll see. I
However,
think
his ceiling is lower than the other guy's ceiling. So I think he's gonna be better in year 1 and 2, and I think the other guys are gonna surpass him and become all pros, and he's never gonna be an all pro. That's just what I think.
Williams is going to start, and he's going to be good, not great, because I don't think the Bears are great.
Right.
It's not really going to be all on him, but I think he will be good. I think Commanders, Jaden Daniels will start, and I think he might have even a rocky couple of first games. But I think he's going to grow into it. And I think by the end of the year, Jaden Daniels will be the cream of this class. That's just how I feel.
I
And
agree that
I'm really glad
he's
Commanders.
gonna be one of the best ones in this class. Top 3.
Patriots, Drake May, he will not start, and he shouldn't start. He is not even close to ready. I do think he might start like the last 4 games of the season, something like that, when they're clearly out of playoff contention. Penix, I think, will probably start due to injury, and he might even start like the second half of the season, something like that. Apparently, he's been absolutely lights out in camp so far, and it's really caused an uncomfortable situation. He's looking really good. McCarthy will not start. It'll be Darnold, but Darnold also has a tendency to get hurt a couple games in. So I just have a feeling McCarthy will get some time this year due to injury. And then Bo Nix is number 3 on the depth chart right now. And according to Peyton, it really is truly an open competition. Do I think he will end up starting much of the season? Yes. I don't know if he'll be the game 1 starter. I just don't know at this point.
I'm not positive he'll be game 1, but he's going to be the starter very quickly. He's throwing really nice long balls in practice. He's showing leadership. He's mature. He's not young, and they don't have to teach him how to be a pro. He's been studying this for so long. He spent so long in college. He's ready, and so I think his upside is lower, but his floor is higher than the other guys.
That's true. So end of the season, you'll have Williams starter, Daniel starter. I think may start the last couple of games of the year because they're out of contention.
So. As of right now, the guy from Tennessee is beating him out on the depth chart. He's sitting right around 3. He's QB3 at the moment, or he's real close to that. So he won't be.
Penix may be starting towards the end of the year, whether it's injury or not. McCarthy probably will only play due to injury.
I think the only way Penix plays is injury also.
He's not really ready. And then I think Bo Nix probably won't start the season, but I think he will play substantial portions of the season. So that's my gut on this. And you see
Bo Nix is going to look the most ready. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be very good. Commanders are sneaky good this year, I think.
They are sneaky good. They are.
I think the Commanders are going to surprise people.
I do too.
I think Williams, unfortunately for him, went to a team that added skill position players, but not much in the trenches. And that's where they needed people. To me, he's going to have the kind of Joe Burrow constantly injured thing going because they're not going to be able to protect him.
Let's talk about Penix Jr. Will he make things awkward for Kirk Cousins? All stories are that during camp, Penix is looking really good and smooth. He's picked up the offense quickly. Will he play at all this year, or will he sit during Cousins' first year, maybe his second year during his lucrative contract?
He will sit because I think Atlanta is very committed to the run. They have really good running backs. They have a tandem, and they're going to be keeping Cousins pretty healthy. They have nice pieces. I think Atlanta's been building nicely over the last few years, and then they went and got their veteran quarterback and a rookie quarterback. I kind of like how they did it, but I wouldn't have picked Penix that high. I would have gotten something in the second round or something.
By the way, Robbie, don't be surprised if Atlanta wins that division. I think they might be pretty good this year.
No, I think they're going to win the division.
Don't be surprised.
No, I think they're going to win the division. Who else is going to beat them? Tampa?
Oh, you got the Saints. You got Tampa. I mean, Baker's playing pretty well.
No.
Yeah. We'll see.
The Saints.
So you don't think he's going to make things uncomfortable? You think they're going to stick with the Kirk Cousins plan?
No, they have a plan, and I actually like their plan. Didn't like picking Penix that high. I thought they had
Mhm.
other needs. Their defense was terrible last year,
Mhm.
but I think they quickly shifted after Penix and got some pieces that they needed, some defense. But
It's gonna
I
be one
think
of those situations, though, anytime you have this situation right here, the first time Kirk Cousins loses 2 in a row,
mm,
everyone in that dome's gonna
it's
be
gonna be overblown. I think they're gonna
panic,
go on
panic.
a nice winning streak, and I think Cousins is gonna have a little win behind him. Um, I don't want to talk about the future though. I think Penix is gonna take it from him in the near future, like within 1 to 2 years,
Maybe
but
even next year, yeah.
maybe even next year,
Mhm.
but not this year. Not unless there's
Mhm.
an injury. I don't
Mhm.
think it's that uncomfortable.
So how do teams handle the new kickoff rules? For those who did not watch the Hall of Fame game, they're gonna be shocked to watch the new kickoff for the first time. In effect, 21 of the 22 players will be lined up in the receiving team's territory and cannot move or engage until the returner fields the kickoff. Most of the receiving team will be lined up at the 35 and the kicking team just 5 yards away at the 40. You can see a graphic there and you can see an actual picture from the Hall of Fame game itself. How drastic a change is this going to be, and how is this going to be handled by teams? What do you think, Robbie?
Uh, I think it's cool because it adds more of a possibility of field position questions. Because there'll be more runbacks. There will be more
Be a
runbacks.
lot more runbacks, yeah.
A lot more runbacks.
Matter of fact, Canales from the Panthers had his press conference yesterday, and you know what he said?
Hmm.
They have a fourth running back who he said likely would not make the team in any other year, but
Mhm.
that they're going to probably put him on the roster because he has shown a knack in practice for making this play particularly good. They said he's really good at picking holes after he fields it
Mhm.
and finds like little wedges, little mini wedges, and has
That's what you
gotten
want.
really good returns. So this guy might make the team purely because of this rule.
Yeah. You want fourth string special teams guys
Yeah.
who can excel in something new like this, so that they can give you a little bit of an advantage. I think it's just gonna be cool. I don't think it's gonna change many games, but I think it'll be cool. I mean, I think just having them blasted out of the back of the end zone was so boring.
You know what? It just got so tedious the last 2 years. There
Yeah.
just was no kickoffs.
They had to
You
do
get
something
like
else.
maybe 1 out of 40 kickoffs returns.
And moving it back to where it was caused so many injuries. They couldn't go
Mhm.
there. So they had to come up with this. And this makes sense because the offense and defense are a lot closer together. There's not going to be a huge collision.
This will
It's
be
going
interesting. I wonder if there'll be more injuries or less with this.
to be way less injuries.
You think?
Oh, not less than kicking out of the back of the end zone every play.
That's what I'm saying. There'll be more
There were no
contact.
injuries with that.
Yeah.
Like maybe you pull a hamstring. That's about it. You weren't hitting anybody. So yeah,
Mhm.
there'll be more injuries than there has been in the last few years. But there's gonna be way less injuries than the old kickoffs, where there was a wedge and everything. Like those guys were going to the hospital and getting put in traction and stuff.
I wonder why they did it 5 yards apart. It
So
seems
you couldn't get a
pretty
huge
close.
head of steam.
Yeah, I guess
They,
so.
they're trying to simulate um, a few steps and you're contacting somebody. You don't have a massive head of steam
And you
and
literally can't move off your line until the guy fields it. So that's interesting. So
right.
there are not gonna be as many, like, muffs, right? I mean, there may be fumbles when he returns it, but
Yeah, they're not gonna have
there's no
anybody in their
muff.
face catching the ball.
Right.
So
This will be really interesting. I'm kind of looking forward to
I
it.
think it'll be interesting for the viewers. I don't think it's gonna
Yeah,
change a lot of game outcomes.
agreed. So next one is Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson battle, and this is a true battle for a starting job for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Tomlin has admitted as much. Wilson's the older QB and has had some ankle and shin injuries he is nursing, so he's been losing time learning the new offense in camp. Meanwhile, Fields has looked really sharp and is picking up the new offense well. Who's going to be the day one starter, and who's going to start more games this year, do you think?
I think Russell will do both of those things, but I think Fields is definitely gonna play. I felt like Chicago gave up on Fields way too quickly. I think he has a lot of potential and a lot of talent. He was not groomed properly. That's one of the reasons why I think Williams is in a bad place for himself. Um,
Mhm.
but I think Russ is Pittsburgh likes predictability in veterans. They like stable.
But don't you think he's going to be looking over his shoulder the whole season? I mean, he has to, right?
Somewhat.
Fields is he's very competent. Fields.
I heard some people really criticizing Russell Wilson's career today on the radio. They were talking about how everywhere he went, his coaches gave up on him. At NC State, they gave up on him. At Wisconsin, they didn't, but he was only there a year. At Seattle, he ended up giving up on him. In Colorado, they definitely gave up on him. And then now we'll see. But he needs to do all the right things. He's got to win over the team.
What if Fields is just clearly playing better in practice the whole season, and he's sitting there? He's 7 inches taller than Russell Wilson.
I don't think that's going to happen because I think Fields is kind of starting over. I think he needs to watch and he needs to learn.
So you're predicting Wilson day one starter and plays most of the games this year.
I think he plays more than half.
But
I
Fields
think he might get dinged up. Fields is going to get time. Yeah. This is exactly what Fields should have had 3 years ago.
Right.
Where he could learn.
They kind of broke him,
They kind of broke him, but they're trying to resuscitate him, and I think they can do it because he's not fully broken. He just had really bad experiences, and
I think Tomlin might be able to do good things with Fields. I really do.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's. Yeah, I think.
Well, I want to know though. I still don't understand why they gave up on Pickett so fast. I mean, they barely even developed him. And they shipped him out. I just didn't get that. Hometown kid,
I think something about Pickett lost the locker room.
Yeah.
And then when he refused to play at the end of the season when he could have.
Apparently he didn't practice hard. There were some things there that I guess Tomlin just didn't like, I guess.
When he decided to go in street clothes and not play when he could have at the end of the year, he lost the city. And so they said, we got to get him out of here.
Right.
He's got to go.
All right, next one is who will be the top rookie receiver in this class? And this might have been the deepest wide receiver class in history. I think it was. With many taking the first round and lots of great players taken after the first round. You had Harrison Jr., you had Malik Neighbors, Xavier Worthy, Rome Odunze, and Brock Bowers all going in the first round. And then, of course, I had to put a picture in there of our guy Malik Washington, who we think was the steal of the draft in the 6th round.
Yep.
Who of these guys do you think is going to have the biggest impact this year? We talked about not many rookies really do have an impact, but you just feel like maybe 1 or 2 of these guys will.
So far in camp, it's Malik Neighbors. He's lighting it up for the Giants. Just incredible. I really like Rome Odunze. I think his time is coming. The other guy who's lighting it up in camp so far, this is a tiny body of work, not a huge body of work, is Brock Bowers. They said he's way ahead of schedule in every way. Blocking schemes, running routes.
Well, he is such a weapon, man. Why can't the Panthers have him?
He was so NFL ready that
I know.
So that's what I'm reading about in camp so far is those 2 have stood out the most.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors is tearing it up for the Giants. And Bowers is doing amazing. So.
And they were saying Harrison's getting really good chemistry with with his offense and with his quarterback.
I would not be worried if I had the other guys on my team. They're going to come along slowly. I think all these wide receivers are going to be pretty good one day. They're all going to be impactful for their teams.
You think the Dolphins are going to be able to use Washington?
Eventually, yeah. I think they just need to build that team up and focus, on their poor performance.
Do you think that Xavier Worthy can become a Tyreek Hill? I mean, he runs a 4.29. Can he become Mahomes' burner?
I think so. I think Mahomes can teach him a lot because Mahomes is a hard worker. So I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be not the star out of this group, though. Right. I think he's just going to be teetering on Pro Bowl every year, but maybe not. And we'll see in year 3 or 4. I don't know.
I think it's going to be Rome Odunze and Brock Bowers. I still think those 2 guys are going to be the best pros out of these 6. Do I think Neighbors is going to be very productive? And Harrison, yes, I think they'll both be very productive.
I still think all these guys are going to have good careers. And I'm not saying that to sit on any fence or anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I really think some of the guys that haven't had huge splashes in camp yet, they just haven't really had opportunities.
Yep. I agree.
So they will. These guys are all really ready. This was an awesome draft.
So next one is Sam Darnold versus J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings have declared Darnold their week 1 starter, but McCarthy was drafted number 10 overall. Has looked really good in camp and will get a lot of playing time in the preseason.
McCarthy's not getting. He's not going to play this year unless there's injury.
How long will it be until the pressure's too great to put McCarthy into the lineup?
They won't do it unless there's an injury. He's getting 0 reps with the first team.
He's only 21 years old.
He's one of the only ones that's not getting any reps with the first team.
Yeah.
So they believe in Darnold. I think they look at this as they believe in McCarthy, but I think they look at this as an Alex Smith and Mahomes situation.
This is the perfect Jordan Love plan. That's what this is.
I agree.
He's 21 years old. He shouldn't start.
You
talk about this all the time.
This is what you want. This is exactly what you want. The Vikings have pretty good players. They have a decent roster. For me, they needed some other pieces other than McCarthy. So I would have gotten those pieces this year and then gotten a quarterback next year. The problem was this quarterback class, you just couldn't miss.
Heavy. Yeah, that's
it
right.
was heavy, so you had to get one. But yeah, there's no question. Darnold's the guy unless he gets hurt. I mean,
but McCarthy is
he
the
throws a couple of picks. He's still the guy. McCarthy's not ready. He will be. I think he's gonna be decent. He's got a lot of leadership skills. I think he's going to be the guy maybe next year or the year after, but I don't see much for him this year. He might be because of injury, but
Darnold has a 2-year contract, so I have to think that after that they won't re-sign him.
Probably not.
Yeah,
he might be on the bench by next year.
So the Broncos QB battle, really interesting. We talked about this. Who's going to win this battle? Broncos come into camp with a deep QB depth chart after shipping Russell Wilson to the Steelers. They have an open competition, according to Sean Payton. Jarrett Stidham is listed at QB1. He's there on the left with the number 4 jersey going into camp, with Zach Wilson as QB2 and the young rookie Bo Nix as QB3. And Payton has said he truly cannot remember a time when he felt like the competition over the next 4 weeks was as wide open as it is right now.
Out of those 3 guys, there's only one guy lighting it up. Bo Nix is lighting it up. There's no question that he's at least QB2, and he's probably going to be QB1. If not week 1, week 2 or 3, he's in there. He's going to be the guy. He looks good and he looks ready. He's throwing incredible long bombs to all their wide receivers.
And he's 24 and he was a 5-year college player. You know, it's not like he's 21.
He's not a rookie. He's older than a rookie. So
Right.
And here's the other thing. You know what's sneaky about the Broncos? This is what people don't really know about. Their offensive line is awesome. They were 6th last year, and they had a guy, I can't remember his name, who was ranked the number 1 offensive lineman in the NFL. Their offensive line is ready to protect a rookie for the most part.
No, they lost
last year, and they're getting better. So
they lost their top 2 receivers. So I'm really wondering who they're going to throw to, but that'll be interesting.
It's a good question, but I think that if you can, they have a really good tandem of running backs, and they have great offensive line play. And all you need is acceptable wide receivers. Just go ask Mahomes, and you can
And Peyton likes to run the ball, so he's going to run the ball.
He loves running the ball, and he loves doing play action, and he loves when his offensive line is pancaking people. And in a short time, he's changed the culture to being one of a lot more protection and smash.
I have a gut feeling you're going to see Jarrett Stidham start for a game or 2, and then you're going to see Bo Nix come in week 3 or 4. That's what I think is going to happen. Maybe. I don't think Zach Wilson is really a threat to be a starter. He's proven himself to be a career backup. That's the way I look at him.
Probably. Unless he takes some kind of quantum leap, he could get some sports psychologist and get in the gym and just kind of really work hard. He could do it. But I think Bo Nix is a more polished product.
I mean, he's clearly the future of the franchise.
I think Bo Nix is actually older than Zach Wilson.
He might be.
I think he's older. Like
he's 3 years older than J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but the offensive line is the star of the show for the Broncos.
It's true.
And when you have that, you can have a rookie quarterback back there. You can't behind these porous lines that get the guy killed.
It's true.
So
Let's talk about Jim Harbaugh 2.0. This is his NFL and Chargers return. He actually used to be the quarterback for the Chargers. Can Jim Harbaugh take his national championship winning ways and turn the Chargers into a contender and to get them to live up to their potential? So far, Justin Herbert has been great on the stat sheet, but hasn't delivered when it counts, and that's the playoffs. Can Harbaugh use his QB whisperer ways to get Herbert and the Chargers to the promised land? And he'll have to contend with a revamped receiver core and new offensive line as well as new defensive pieces. So he's got a lot of question marks, both on both sides of the ball.
I think he's had incredible picks in the offensive line side. I think they were getting too expensive, the wide receivers in Williams and what's his name? I think I'm not the biggest fan of Jim Harbaugh, but I cannot help but say this guy can build a culture out of nothing. All right. He went and he took the Niners. This is what people forget. When he took over, they were terrible. They were terrible. I think they had 2 wins or 1 win when they fired Singletary. 2 wins, maybe. I don't remember how many, but it was bad. They were bad. He built that up from nothing. He built up Stanford from nothing, and he made them relevant nationally. Okay.
And think about what did he bring in the offseason and in the draft? What did he bring in? He brought in like several offensive linemen. He brought in his stud running back from the University of Michigan national championship team. So he's going to run the ball, obviously. He brought in a stud tight end. And he brought in a couple receivers. So you can see he's going to be a run-first coach. They're going to play smash mouth.
Smash mouth and then play action, and you have single coverage. And
you have Justin Herbert.
This guy builds a culture of winning. That's what he does. He's an expert. He did it with the Niners. He did it with Stanford. He did it with Michigan. Michigan couldn't beat Ohio State to save their lives. And now it's what they do every year. And now that he's gone,
3 straight years.
Now that he's gone, they're probably going to start losing again to Ohio State. This is the impact that this guy can do. He's kind of a weird guy. He's interesting. He's quirky. Not
but he loves football.
But he loves football more than anyone. I heard an interview with what was his name? Julian Edelman. He almost went to the Niners with Harbaugh. And he said Harbaugh invited him in, and they put in a shoe. So the players love him because he's kind of like one of them. And they just talked about football for hours. And he said he's really never seen someone love football more than Harbaugh.
You have to think, because he had a choice between like 4 different teams, you have to think he chose the Chargers for a lot of reasons. 1, he played for them, but 2, they had this top 5 quarterback already in place. I mean, that had to be part of his thinking. Because when you're a coach and you're going back to the NFL, you don't want to go a place that has a crap quarterback, right?
It's no question. But what's the first move he makes? Getting a stud offensive lineman, like a once in a generation kind of.
2 of them. You got 2 of them.
I know, but the one guy is unreal. Yeah. So, I think he can build a culture there of winning.
And will it shock you if they sneak into the playoffs this year?
No, sneak in the playoffs this year and go deep next year. Sure, like I think that's almost likely, unless they can't get Herbert's plantar fasciitis straightened out. He's banged up right now, which is actually probably good for Harbaugh. Not being a new coach, you want to play with your star. You want to get that reps, and learn each other's quirks and personalities. But this is a good time for them to be working on all backup situations.
It's interesting because most teams who sign a new coach sign him for 4 to 5 years. They intentionally signed him to a 7-year deal. And the owner said the reason they did that, they wanted to send a signal to their fans and to their players that they're 100% committed to this guy and they want him to change the culture. It's all about culture with him.
No, that's it. That's what he does.
They gave him a 7-year deal. Yeah.
So.
All right, next one is Patriots after the Bill Belichick divorce. So the Bill Belichick Patriots divorce is very intriguing. First, what does camp look like in New England now? Are players having fun? Who will start at quarterback? Can they give May time to develop their new quarterback, their rookie? Is the new head coach, Jared Mayo, actually ready to be a head coach? There's some real questions about that. What schematic changes are in store so the team can actually generate some offense? They scored 9 points a game last year. Belichick won't be on an NFL staff for the first time since 1974, which is pretty incredible. So what are your thoughts about the Patriots? How does this team that looks like they're kind of the bottom of the barrel in the AFC, how do they
I think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think they rode Hall of Fame coach and quarterback into a dynasty that they didn't realize how good they had it while they had it. I heard a lot of complaining from Patriots fans, but honestly, they didn't understand that the Patriots is not – New England is not an ideal place to go. As case in point is Brandon Ayuk. They privately were negotiating, and they offered him a tremendous amount of money. I think it was $33 million, and he turned it down because he didn't want to go to the Patriots. They were going to pay him the money he wanted.
And think about that. That was a destination place 5 years ago.
Correct. He would rather go back to the Niners for less money, even if it's a little uncomfortable, than go to the Patriots. And so that tells you the state of affairs there it's in bad shape. They're in bad shape. I think they're one of the bottom 3 teams in the NFL, and they're probably last in terms of destination to go play there.
I completely agree with you. So what about some of these questions, though? Like, who's
Which, by the way, is weird because I have nothing against Kraft. I think he's a good owner. I think he's a good owner.
He's one of the better ones. I agree.
But I think there's not much.
Are they going to give May time to develop? Who's going to start at QB? And then is Jared Mayo really the choice at coach? And is he going to be there for very long? The NFL is pretty brutal.
I think May's going to be third on the depth chart. They're very impressed with the guy from Tennessee. He's been lighting it up, and Brissett is going to be the starter. So I don't really see how May gets himself even in.
So then the answer is yes, they're going to give May time to develop. That's what it sounds like. They are going to give him time.
Absolutely right.
And what about Jared Mayo? I mean, he's a defensive coach. He takes over a team that already was decent at defense and can't score any points.
It's a big question mark. I was hearing today on the radio, they were talking about how defensive coaches really don't succeed in the NFL anymore very much because they're unable to get the other side of the ball to be elite.
That's right.
And I think the same thing's going to happen here. It's like nothing. I don't know if he's good or not in the locker room and stuff, but he's not going to be good enough X's and O's wise to get the offense to improve.
Like the Panthers last year scored the third least number of points. They were literally at the bottom. The Patriots were below them. So
yeah.
And so what do? They go load up on offensive coaches, with like Canales, and because they want to score some points, or else you can't compete. So, it's going to be really interesting. See what happens to this team.
They might get a little better. It's possible, but I don't think they're headed back into deep in the playoffs or anything.
Not like a contender. Yeah.
No. Nope.
Next one is, can Aaron Rodgers be Aaron Rodgers after repaired Achilles? And one of the biggest questions in this camp is, can the Jets help Rodgers get himself back into position to be a top 5 QB again? That's why they paid a king's ransom in draft picks and salary cap room so they could get their team into playoff contention in a very tough AFC East. Can Rodgers reach his MVP form of 2 years ago? What are your thoughts?
I have the same concerns this year I had last year, where their offensive line is not good enough, and so they're gonna struggle because Aaron Rodgers needs time to be magical, and he's not going to get it. And their head coach is a defensive guy, so again, you have that same problem.
So he's running for his life, essentially.
He's running for his life. He's unfortunately probably going to get hurt again, but if he doesn't get hurt, he's always going to be throwing the ball away just to salvage himself. And
I think the Jets roster is not very good anyway. I really don't think they're very good. They have one receiver, And they're trying to trade for Devontae Adams right now, but one receiver. Their offensive line is terrible. Their defense is decent, but not great.
Yeah.
And again, they have a defensive coach who you see there on the screen. And I don't know. I just don't. I also don't see him getting back into top 5 QB shape again. I just don't see that. I do think he'll be decent. He's not going to be terrible. He won't be Zach Wilson. But who's he throwing to? I don't know. Garrett Wilson,
Yeah. No, they have bigger problems.
And an Achilles is not always an easy injury to come back from. Everyone assumes he can get back from that, but I don't know. We'll see
It's
when he
not so
gets
much
into it.
that. I think just he won't have the protection he needs to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
So always be getting hit, throwing the ball away.
So it's not as much about his ability to get back, you're saying, but it's more about his surrounding cast, which is not very good.
Right.
So any last-minute trades that can build a roster? There are some big-time players who requested a trade but are still on their current teams. And that is led by Ayuk of the 49ers, who wants a larger contract, and Adams of the Raiders, who wants to reunite with Rodgers in New York. So will there be any last-minute trades that make a difference before week 1?
Yes. It looks like the Ayuk trade is done. They're just arguing a little bit over the contract.
Where's he going?
He's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
So it's all been agreed to, but there's some contract things that need to be worked out. And so that's not done yet. But it'll be kind of hilarious to watch this later and see if that was good information.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it looks like. And I think he can really help them. He's going to have those 2 quarterbacks that will gel with him, hopefully.
And they already have Pickens, who's a really good receiver. Yeah, Pickens, he really came out of his own last week. Last year. So if they have Pickens and Ayuk, that's a pretty good tandem.
It's a great tandem. They've developed another running back, so now they have a tandem at running back. And Tomlin doesn't lose much.
They might be pretty good next year.
They're going to be a decent team. I think quarterback-wise, they're in decent shape. I think if your backup is somebody who used to be a starter, I think that's good. So
yeah,
they made some hard choices this year, letting Pickett go and doing some. They kind of had to go through last year to survive. But
what about Devontae? You think he can get to New York?
I don't think it'll help him that much. I think he's a very good wide receiver. I think for him, it's not much better. Would you rather be with the Raiders or the Jets?
Well, apparently he wants to play with Rodgers again. So
I'm sure he does. Yeah, I'm sure he does. It's just there's not a big difference between those teams. They both have big needs. If you have a roster that has large needs on it, then.
Well, if you're going to suck, wouldn't you rather play with somebody who you enjoy playing with and you can get 15 touchdowns with, but still suck? Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's what he's thinking. And he gets all kinds of bonuses in his contract.
He'll get a lot more balls from Rodgers, I think.
Yeah, that's what he's thinking. Yeah. So next one is, will any of these big QB contracts haunt their teams this year and for years to come? A lot of big contracts were handed out to QBs, the most important position in the sports in the last 12 months. But in the salary cap era, it's been proven that almost all of these deals won't pan out and actually hamstring a franchise for years. Which of these deals were a mistake? And by the way, you don't see Mahomes on there, first of all, because he's number 9 now in ranking in terms of salary, but also you don't see Deshaun Watson because he signed his deal 2 years ago. So I only took the ones from the past 12 months. So you see, you got Tua, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Aaron Rodgers. You've got Jordan Love, who just signed the most lucrative deal in history. You have Burrow, who's number 3. You have Jared Goff, who just signed a huge $220 million deal. And then you have Jalen Hurts. All these guys essentially are making $200 million plus from their franchises. So which of these guys do you think are a mistake?
All of them.
Me too. Are any of these guys, if you were to pick like maybe 2 or 3 that you thought might be able to come close to being that value? Earn their contract.
Probably, believe it or not, Lamar, Love, and Burrow.
Lamar, Love, and Burrow. Okay, I agree with that.
But I think all 3 their contracts hurt their team.
I think Tua was a mistake. I think Lawrence was a mistake.
Yeah.
Goff actually took a little bit less money than the other guys because he knew he was second tier. He's still making a lot. He's making like 48 million a year or something, but
Yeah.
it wasn't as outrageous as some of the other ones. And then Hurts making 50 million a year, I just don't get it.
It's
And he's
nuts.
decent. He's decent, but he's not even top 10 in my opinion.
He had one good season. One.
Yeah.
He had bad seasons before it. He got basically bounced off his team at Alabama back to third string or whatever. He has one great year, and they pay him like crazy. There's a lot of that here. That a lot of mediocre performances. That Tua had one healthy year, and he gets paid like crazy. That's mismanagement. That's a mess.
And that's your team.
These are all mistakes. Every single one of them.
Do you think that some of these teams, though, just have no choice? I mean, like with Lamar Jackson, he held out and held out and held out. He didn't even have an agent. At some point, they just realized, look, we can't let Lamar Jackson go, and we can't really trade him to anybody. So,
to me, I'm starting over at quarterback every 4 years. That's what I'm doing. So I'm never paying one of these guys.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm getting somebody like Penix behind a veteran for a year, and then I have 3 to 4 years to take a shot with him.
And by the way, why do you not see Mahomes on this page? Why do you think?
He's first of all, he's worth the money.
Yes.
He makes everyone better.
Why is he not there?
And he's not one of the top paid.
Because he believes in the Tom Brady model, which is take a hometown discount and build your team and win chips, win rings.
The money needs to be spread around more than just in my pocket.
Because he makes $30 million a year in endorsements. So you know what I'm saying? So and he wouldn't make those endorsements if he didn't win the rings every year. So it's just smart.
Yeah.
So he's doing the Tom Brady model. I just wonder why more of these guys don't do that.
I don't know. Their agents won't let them.
Why don't you take a little bit less and get yourself an offensive line? You know what I mean?
Exactly. You need to invest in your offensive line, or else you're going to be hurt all the time. Like, Rodgers was four plays
like Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow
hurt every year.
Yeah,
and he's a great player. He's really good.
And you and I went round and round about how they should have gotten Penny Sewell instead of Jamar Chase, and you thought I was crazy. Well, look what's happened. I was telling you before the season started how Rodgers was going to get hurt, and he four plays in, the guy's out for the season.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So they're all a mistake, and you're saying 3 of them can come close to earning their contracts. Okay.
Close, yeah.
I agree with you, actually. I agree with on all of those. Lions-Texans Super Bowl. 2 years ago, you would have been laughed out of a sports bar for picking the Texans and the Lions Super Bowl matchup. Now it's the sexy pick, the two teams that made the biggest jumps last season. The Lions enter camp with a rejuvenated quarterback in Jared Goff, armed with his new $212 million extension. Head coach Dan Campbell is convicted as ever to his radical strategies after a couple of risks that cost the Lions key points of the NFC Championship game. Texans enter camp spending $144 million in guaranteed money during the first 3 weeks of free agency, including trading for receiver Stephon Diggs. What are your thoughts about these two ascending teams?
I love the way they built their teams. They've been just slowly drafting these unsexy picks, linemen, defensive backs. They've been drafting so well. And they had these mediocre journeyman quarterbacks, nothing particular. I mean, I'm not going to call Matt Stafford a mediocre quarterback, but they weren't paying him tremendously well. The Texans didn't have anybody. They weren't paying Deshaun much. So then you go out and you get your quarterbacks situated when your whole team is built, and you make your run, and they're in the middle of the beginning of their run.
Would you be shocked if these two teams made it to the Super Bowl? If maybe one of them made it?
Not shocked. No. I think it's very possible. I wouldn't say likely. I think it's really hard to say what's likely, but I think
Which of these two teams do you think has the better chance? I know who I think it is, but I want to hear yours.
I think the Lions have to go through fewer people.
I think it's the Lions. They actually almost did it last year.
They have to
They were
go through
really close.
fewer good teams. But I think that the Texans were built perfectly.
They were
And
built
now
perfectly.
they're going out and getting those veterans that are on hometown discount deals.
But
Because
really,
people,
the Lions are built perfectly. They can run the ball when they aren't
yeah,
passing it well. They can pass the ball. I mean, these two, you're right. These two teams are very well constructed.
they were
There's
built
no-
perfectly. These GMs
yeah.
did a perfect job. And, I think the winning's not a surprise, not to me.
And you have Stroud, who's on a rookie contract. So you have your windows open. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of perfect.
So they can spend money on getting Stefan Diggs,
Which they just did.
Right. They can
Exactly.
spend money on a need that they have, like a glaring weakness. They might have a weakness at,
Mhm.
safety or something. They can go get one. They have
I
the money.
think I think both these cities should be pretty excited. I would be if I had one of these franchises.
Yeah, well, they've
It should
been
be
down
fun.
and bad for so long
Right.
that it's easy to get excited about it.
Mhm.
I do think, though, that anytime you have a really young quarterback, there can be the hype train that's a little much, a
Mhm.
little too much.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
All right, next one's all about you, man. It's can Dolphins beat the cold weather playoffs? Dolphins' high-flying offense cooks in September and October, but when the weather gets bad and temperatures drop below freezing, their offense becomes pedestrian. The
I don't.
Dolphins have the
I don't
Dolphins
think
have
that they
lost
can.
the Dolphins have lost 10 straight games where the kickoff temperature is below 40 degrees, which is the longest active streak in the NFL. Also, their defense has not been up to championship standards. Is this year the year that they can win the division and make some noise in the playoffs? And do they need home field throughout to make it?
I don't know. I hope so. I think so. I think it's a little overstated, the whole cold thing. These players come from Ohio State and all these places where it's cold. So
So why does his completion
if you
percentage
think if
drop?
you think about what happened last year, where they had to play in 12 below zero, that was ridiculous. There were fans getting limbs amputated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a ridiculous game. That was not a true statement, or 30 below zero or whatever. Anyway, that was not a true illustration of. I don't think you're going to be playing in that very often.
It's not just last year though, Rob. This happens every year to them. They're
No, I
always
know,
good in September and October.
but I haven't seen them as good as they were last year
My
anymore.
question to you is the only chance for them to go to the Super Bowl for them to be the number one seed in the AFC and to have home field throughout? That's my question.
No,
Because
not the only.
otherwise, they're going to be going to a cold, crappy weather place.
I know, but
And
I think if their defense is shored up from last year, I think
they can run the
McDaniel
ball. They can run.
McDaniel learned a lot about abandoning the run.
That was so dumb.
It was so
Just
dumb.
run the ball.
And I think if he watches film, he's going to realize, man, we should have stayed with the run. And they're going to accentuate the run and throw into the tight end more. And that's going to open up these speedy wide receivers. So
Mhm.
I think they learned a lot on offense and they learned a lot on defense. They weren't good enough on defense for whatever reasons. Vic
Well,
Fangio's system didn't work with those players for some reason.
I'm rooting for the Dolphins to win that division. I really want them to. And I'm just hoping that all the moves that McDaniel and them have made this year, and all I can hope is that they have a really good record and that they have at least a couple games at home in the playoffs. That's what I'm hoping for.
That'd be nice, and also if we don't have a record cold 30 below zero
Because
game
if
in
you
Kansas
because if
City.
you have to go to the Chiefs and then you have to go to the Ravens, week after week in minus 20-degree weather, it's tough. It's really
It is
tough on the road.
It is tough.
Yeah.
It is tough. I don't know. I think it has more to do with, do they have the right game plan to
Right.
win instead of, I don't know.
So next question is Josh Allen's talent being wasted? The Bills have disappointed the last couple seasons, even though they've been picked as one of the top 3 teams in the league each season. Somehow Allen and the Bills have been unable to get past the Chiefs. Can they do it with Allen and the offense he is very comfortable in, but with all new weapons? and you have these guys that are coming off of other teams. You got Claypool there on the left. You got Curtis Samuel. You have Valdez Scandling, who comes over from the Chiefs, and then you have their rookie they drafted, Keon Coleman. You got all these new guys. Some of them may be good. Who knows? But can the Bills ever get over the hump of the Chiefs?
Not this year. They let way too much talent walk out the door because they've been mismanaging the cap. No.
Mm-hmm.
They let, the joke about Josh Allen throwing to himself as he runs down the field to be his own wide receiver. There's some truth to that. There's nowhere to go with the ball. These guys are all kind of a joke. Keon Coleman might have a nice career, but this is one of the worst receiving cores in the NFL.
I mean, Valdez Scanley is just kind of a fourth receiver. Curtis Samuel, he's decent. I mean, he's bounced around. He was with the Panthers, and he was with the Commanders. Chase Claypool, he's kind of a head case. I mean, we've seen him. He's talented, but
he flames out on teams that he goes to. He doesn't.
I don't know. I don't like this receiver core either. I do think Keon Coleman was a good choice, though. I think he'll be really good.
Yeah, he's the guy that you can build around in the future.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But they're depleted of talent. They lost a lot of good players and didn't replace them with anybody.
When you look at this team, you have to think the Dolphins are the favorite in that division. I just have to think. Yeah.
Yes.
Which coach is on the hottest seat? So, according to NFL insiders, these four are all essentially win and go deep in the playoffs, or you're out.
I don't think McDaniel's
that's Sean McDermott in Buffalo, Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia, Mike McDaniel in Miami, and Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. And they all need strong.
It's not Peterson or McDaniel. I think it's probably Sirianni.
I think so too.
Because
it's funny, he looked kind of lost last year. A lot of people were remarking. It's like he didn't know how to turn him around.
Yeah, and apparently he had such a bad relationship with Hurts that they couldn't even be in the same room at the end of the year.
I think McDermott's going to get fired too. I think McDermott and McDermott and Sirianni are going to get fired. I believe those
McDermott two guys is not doing a very good job, and in doing a poor job, especially in the playoffs, he's a defensive guy. So,
right.
He doesn't know how to fix the offense that's flailing in the playoffs.
So what if Peterson goes 6-11? He could be in trouble too.
I don't think so. I don't think he's in any kind of hot seat. These two Florida guys are not in trouble.
And what if McDaniel starts 2-4 or something, 2-5?
They might say he has a whole new defense to play with, and that's hurting his team and whatever. I don't know, but it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where those two guys get fired. It's not hard for me to imagine for these other two guys, McDonough and Sirianni.
Because these two guys were on the hot seat last year. so
what's funny is Sirianni's kind of a trash-talking coach who's like aggressive, and that doesn't match the personality of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Hurts is very respectful,
respectful, and also they're very professional. The Eagles
are professional. Yeah, he doesn't match them at all.
Mm-hmm.
He was a choice.
That's true. Will the 49ers finally get a ring? 49ers have had the most complete roster in football for 5 straight seasons, and all they have is 3 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl loss. To say they have disappointed their faithful would be an understatement. At first, they were unable to get the QB position right, but now they have Brock Purdy and have brought everybody back. Is this their year?
I think it should be. I think you can get yourself up to the level where you can expect deep playoffs, and then after that, it's kind of up to luck. I think this team is talented enough to go on a deep playoff run, but to make it all the way to the Super Bowl and win it, that does take some luck. And so I don't know, but I think
what about without Ayuk?
I think it's the most talented roster in the NFL without Ayuk.
Now they did draft a receiver, McConkey. He's a pretty good. He's a possession receiver, but are they Super Bowl?
Apparently, he's having a very bad camp though. So they're
Okay.
very disappointed. I think he'll make the team, and they'll just sit him, and he'll keep growing and learning, whether they get rid of Ayuk or not. But I have heard that there are rumors that the reason they're trying to hang on to Ayuk so much is because he's been disappointing.
All
I
right.
don't know.
So is there any other team in the NFC you think is better than the 49ers right now going into the season?
No, but I think the Lions are close.
I think the Lions and the 49ers are the two best teams in the NFC. I think that's pretty
So do I.
clear. And I
Yeah.
think the Packers would be number 3. I think the Packers are contenders. I think
Packers.
they're going to be knocking on the door this year.
And I think the Eagles are good despite the coaching situation.
Eagles are good. And then Dallas always wins a lot of regular season games and then flames out.
I've been hearing about Jalen Carter in practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, he's a wrecking machine.
So who do you think's the best team in the AFC?
Definitely Kansas City. I don't know who's next. Oh, Ravens. Yeah, Ravens.
Those are probably the top 2 with maybe the Texans knocking on the door.
Texans are close. Yeah.
Texans are close. Yeah. Chargers if Harbaugh's system kicks in.
If they can get this plantar fasciitis stuff straightened out with Herbert, I think they can do it. They can be good.
Well, Robbie, those were the big stories coming out of training camp so far this year, and lots of exciting stuff. I'm just so pumped for football, and a lot of interesting things that we talked about. Any final thoughts about as these training camps wrap up? You know, these teams are going to be trying to cut down to 53. Some scout teams will be formed, but any final thoughts going into the season?
Not too much. Just in my research, I've noticed that there's been a lot of injuries that were minor, a lot of pulled hamstrings, and people on the PUP, physically unable to play list.
And by the way, some of the teams are holding them out on the PUP just as precaution,
Yeah.
like the Panthers. I'm
Caution.
watching the game right now on TV, and they have put Brooks from Texas because he's coming off an injury on the PUP list, but apparently he's perfectly healthy. They're just doing it.
So there's a lot of that. I wouldn't call it really news though, because it wouldn't be happening if it was during the regular season. I think most teams are just kind of finding out which one of their young guys is going to make the step early, and the teams that are going to do the best are the ones who've handled their cap the best. And
Like tonight, they didn't start one starter. Not one starter started. So it was literally like all second and third stringers. It's all guys trying to make the team.
Yeah, you want to see who you got. When you're rebuilding, you really want to take a look at new guys because you're not convinced the old guys are very good.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 12 cornerbacks out there, and 6 are going to make it. So he's got to see all of them play, right, in a game situation.
Yeah.
All the corners.
Yep.
And he's got probably twice as many safeties on the roster right now than he needs. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited about it. Yeah. I'm hoping your Dolphins are good this year. I'm hoping my Panthers improve. I'm rooting for Jaden Daniels of the Commanders to do really well, and that would make Dad real happy, of course, to see the Commanders be a little bit better.
Should be better.
I think they might be sneaky good. And there's always teams that make the playoffs that you don't expect. So I'm really kind of excited to see who that might be this year. I'm fearful that it'd be somebody like the Falcons out of the Panthers division, or one of those types of teams.
I think they are. I think the Falcons are going to win that division.
And one of these years, Sean Payton's going to get the Broncos to be good. You just don't know what year it's going to be.
I think it's going to be this year. I think they're going to be decent.
Yeah. And then Seattle.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if they make the playoffs.
Seattle's kind of on the rise. You have lots of teams that could sneak in there. You just don't know.
I think Seattle's kind of.
You got Daniel Jones coming back off an injury. He's going to be real motivated with his new wide receiver neighbors.
Yeah.
But Saquon Barkley now is over with Philly, so that'll be interesting to watch. Yeah. A lot of really cool things. So really excited to see it.
Me too.
You guys, thanks for coming tonight. Hope you like this video down below, and also subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great content coming your way. Next week, we're going to be doing the Olympics wrap-up show. We're going to be talking about how the USA did and just the Olympics in general. So that'll be really fun. And then coming up here in a couple weeks, we're going to have our NFL kickoff show at Carolina Steel, which is a bar here in Charlotte. We're going to be meeting up with Jeff Reed, who was on our show before, and a couple of Carolina Panthers who are retired are going to be joining us. And we're going to have a lot of fun. It'll be some of the folks that have been guests on our show are going to be coming to that opening. So looking forward to it. So have a great night. Robbie, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time.
See you.